Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go. On the Eating at a Meeting podcast, we talk about all things food and beverage with experts in all facets of food and beverage to learn how to create more safer, more inclusive, and sustainable food and beverage experiences. And this is, I don't even know how many live episodes I've done now, but I know that produced and published on the podcast are up to 65 episodes. So I've talked to a lot of people over the last year, 9 months. And so I hope you've gotten a good breadth of information and education with all of my guests. And today's guest, I'm really excited to have on as well. She was introduced to me by another guest, Jennifer Senna, who was on in February talking about heart health after actually having a heart attack herself. And so she has worked with Liz Cohen, our guest today from For Good Health Coaching, about mindfulness. And Liz, Jennifer and I are in the same industry as Liz. We're hospitality professionals. And Liz has had a parallel career path. We're having worked in the hospitality industry for Marriott International for 32 years, but she's also a certified health coach, corporate well-being consultant, and owner of, as I said, For Good Health Coaching. And throughout her life, she has worked constantly on curating things mindfully as well as healthy. So welcome to the show, Liz.
Hello. Nice to be here. Hi, everyone.
Hi. Okay. So I'm really intrigued by, running the parallel careers of doing the mindfulness and the coaching. So, so I want to tell us a little bit more about how you balance that out over the last 32 years.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started first of all, I was an overweight child and adolescent. And I found my way to health and wellness in my 20s. So there was something inside of me about health and wellness. And I wasn't sure from a career perspective what direction, but I had already started down a path in hospitality. So I went through college, started working at a Marriott local in my area in New York. And I was introduced to personal training. And that was way before it was mainstream and way before even like a lot of women were doing it. So I totally fell in love, not with my trainer, like a lot of stories go out there, but with weight training. And from a really good experience of having an amazing trainer, understanding the mindset and how a trainer can help someone, I ended up getting certified as a personal trainer and started working at the gym. All at the same time working as a catering sales manager and event planner at the Marriott. So I've had a lot of experience in food and beverage and events and planning and all of that. And at the same time, I was doing, my personal training. Fast forward, I started working for Marriott headquarters, corporate, and they, over about 10 years ago, started their corporate well-being program. And that was it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is where I belong. I just love health and wellness. And I was in the corporate world working remotely, by the way, for 20 some odd years. Oh, wow. And I know now with, quarantine last year and everyone working remotely, really started focusing on energy and mindfulness and being able to manage your emotions to be able to have the best and most productive days. So I've had a potpourri of different experiences with health and wellness, and at the same time have so much experience in event planning and attending meetings as well. That it was just like a really nice fit for me to be here today. And thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. That's really intriguing. So 2 things in there, and we talked about this a little bit before we came on the show, but can you tell people what mindfulness actually is, but then also that word that you used in your description is energy, and what does that exactly mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was introduced to meditation, which is a scary word to a lot of people. So that was about 6 years ago, before it was also very mainstream now. And I think the word got turned into mindfulness because it felt a little bit easier to connect to.
Okay.
A little bit backstory. I did have a back injury, which as a fit person was very difficult to comprehend. Like, how did this happen to me? So I got through that by a kind friend sending me a book called Mindfulness in Plain English, or Meditation in Plain English. And I started reading that. That was like 6 years ago. And that's where I was like, okay, this is amazing. Like, meditate. I started to just use it to help calm my body and help reduce the pain, but also get through this like frustration of how did this happen to me, a fit person? Things happen, it happens. Right. So I started meditating before all these apps were around. And what I found was meditation is just really breathing. It's just really purposefully breathing and being in the moment. And that's really what mindfulness is. Mindfulness allows you to appreciate where you are, what you have. It brings you more gratitude for the things you have. And related to food and beverage, it really gives you that opportunity, if you take it and you use it, to taste and savor. And that's a fabulous word. Savor the foods and beverages you're drinking and eating.
Well, yeah. And with meetings and events, and this from the catering side, I'm like, we rush in, we rush out. We got to go to the next event, or breakout session, or, we've got to, even at big conferences, you've been invited to 5 different parties and you got to run from those different parties. But so you're just really shoving food in your mouth to be satiated, if you even want to call it that, get something full in your body. But this week I was listening to and participated in the Event Leadership's pandemic on-site certification program. And, I was listening to Kevin White, and he did a great job. And so if you haven't taken it, take it. It's very eye-opening. But one of that aspects of it was, eating, because we do a lot of chatting and with our masks on. But when we take our masks off to eat, people spit sometimes, so it might be a little bit more scary to eat, but also because we're coming back into meetings and all of these different scenarios of getting people through buffet lines or plated, how can we make that experience more mindful? Because we're already coming into a stressful experience, coming into a meeting right after COVID.
Yeah, it is complicated. If you're with a group and, you chose to be there, so you probably have already had some precautions already taken care of for yourself to be there. Then I think mindfulness is a lot about breathing and deep breathing. Mm-hmm. So I would definitely do that either somewhere private or with your mask on. So, you can take deep breaths in and deep breaths out, because those are important to let go of whatever stress you have.
Right.
So if you can do that, just a couple of them before you're going to actually be seated at the table, that would be a good first start. And before you're going up to a buffet. But once you're seated, I read a really great book, Mindfulness, Mindful Eating, and there were just some really simple basics. You put both your feet on the ground. You take a moment to just relax. You could take a few breaths in and out that are, not big breaths in, or especially you can take big breaths in, but, not too many breaths. Don't breathe out too loudly. And then take a moment to observe, what you're eating before you eat. and then slow down. Just slow down. Make some eye contact with the people around you. Smiling just triggers to your body that everything's okay. Different neurotransmitters kind of start kicking in, and when you can relax your body, it also helps with digestion. So mindful eating is all about being in the moment, tasting the foods, recognizing what you're eating, and also allowing the digestive process to happen. And I have a really wonderful story about when we were in Greece. We were in Ikaria, Greece, or Ikaria, and that is a blue zone. So for those of you that may not know what a blue zone is, they are 5 places, I think there might be 7 now, but 5 places where they've researched and found that people live with vitality and longevity, and the largest amount of people. And so we went and we spent an entire week, which was definitely not long enough, but it felt very long, just understanding the culture and enjoying a cooking class, actually. Mm-hmm. And every day we sat outside and enjoyed the foods that were cooked. And this is what we heard, because everyone was just like, oh my gosh, it was just so amazing. And when you can take a moment to just enjoy the people that are around you, mm-hmm. and keep in mind, these were strangers. Like, right. We became instantly connected through food and beverage within one day.
Wow. That shows you the power of what food does and beverage does and how it can connect people. And I think that's really important. And when you were talking, I'm thinking, how a lot of people at events, you might have a priest or a religious figure, say a prayer before you eat. But we could incorporate that into, having a mindfulness person at our events and just saying, okay, let's breathe, sit down, enjoy your meal. We're here. And that's just a different way to look at it. And to do that, something else came to mind and it escapes me, but I'm sure it'll come back. But
yeah, I can add on by saying that is a great idea, that before going into a meeting, like if, as I mentioned, I've planned and I have attended probably 1,000 meetings, right. Super large and small. And I think, you're being inundated with information. Mm-hmm. So to have somebody come up after the last speaker before, let's say, lunch break, and just go, okay, everyone, we're just going to relax. We're just going to take a moment to be in the moment, to take in some breaths and to get ready to enjoy the meal. And then you can even give them some cues of reminders, like, remember, food is delicious, and take a minute to taste what you're eating and take a moment to recognize who you're around and smile. Just some of those cues. Right. People are so busy and they're just, their phones, and they have to respond, that even though it sounds so basic, sometimes right. It just takes somebody to remind you.
Exactly. And LA just said, we have the fast food world. And there's an organization that I'm a part of and called Slow Food. And they actually, when the first McDonald's went into the city of Rome, they're like, we need to create this organization to combat that fast food world, to say, let's enjoy and know where our food is coming from and appreciate the people who made it and grew it and a variety of things on that center. And so LA 100% agree with you. And and events epitomize that as well, because we've got these time crunches and even when we're doing, because of COVID, and planners are probably thinking about, and I've even said this in my webinars, is that maybe you need to do timed lunches, like in high school and elementary school. Mm-hmm. Group A or the red team goes at 11:30 and the blue team goes at 12. That's still another kind of stressful thing to put through that whole thing. So I think coming back to mindfulness in our meetings and giving people that ability to do it is going to be a lot helpful.
Yeah, I agree.
And for us planners.
Well, are you talking about Rome, Italy, and McDonald's? Is that what you're saying? Mm-hmm. Well, I have a quick story. So my husband and I, we travel a lot, and we enjoyed Italy, and we were in different parts of rural Italy, and then we did go into Rome. And the minute I saw McDonald's, I was just like, no, this is not right. I was like, this is so sad, But
Ellie, she just came up with a great thing too. I love it at events when they bring in the chefs and servers for appreciation. It helps us recognize where our food comes from. Ellie, I love that. It is so true because, and actually in my course, Every Meal Matters, I had a food and beverage director on there, and there's a role called the expediter, and who is helping get it from the kitchen, and putting it out. And that person doesn't get any love from us. The servers do, or the CSM does, but those expediters, and maybe even the banquet chef gets love from us, with tips and things like that. But we really do need to appreciate the people who are making the food and delivering it to us. I love that, Ellie. Thank you.
Yeah, I can add on. I wanted to add on that mindfulness also leads to appreciation and gratitude. And that's really where Ellie was going. And I've been part of that. I've been part of event planners that have helped plan an event. And with Marriott, which I got to give a shout out to my company for 32 years, amazing, talented people out there with that company. And I had opportunities to appreciate. They would walk all of them across the stage, every server, every chef, every catering service person that put together the event. So, we know we take care of each other. And when it was like an internal event, they would do that. And we would just cheer and give them a standing ovation. And it's fabulous. Right. And I've been in that as well as being the one walking across planning it. So totally agree that it maybe doesn't have to be just for the internal meetings. We do that Marriott to Marriott, but perhaps meeting planners can talk to the catering staff and event staff and just show, hey, we want to show your chef and their staff and the banquet team appreciation. So that's a great idea.
Well, and I, in my past corporate life and even in, as a third party, is like your client thanks you, but we have to say, I didn't do this all on my own because, and this is one thing I think our industry, we've been chatting about it a lot through the pandemic, is that we keep what we do to ourselves because we wear black. We hide in the background so that we don't know what we're doing. But all of those people or minions that help us and let our little legs run as fast as we can under the water, we need to support them and say, hey, this is what we do. And this is my team. My team are the servers and the chefs and the AV guys,
They work hard.
Not just guys, AV people, right?
Yeah. People.
Yeah. Yes. So I 100% agree with that. So what benefits have you seen with your clients and with yourself and corporate wise and individually on being mindful and bringing that to the table?
Yeah. Personally, as I shared, I started mindfulness about 7 years now. Oh my gosh, 7 years this month. It was when I had my back surgery. And I definitely remember the moment that I recognized the difference it made in my life, the meditation part and the breathing. And it was probably about 3 or 4 months into it. So it doesn't have to take that long to really see changes. And it can happen almost instantly with just a breathing exercise, but like long term. So may come as a surprise being in the travel industry that I did not like to fly, but I didn't. And so as a flyer, even though I did travel a lot, I was the sweaty palm, stress-induced heart palpitating, especially with landing. And when I traveled with my husband, I would have to squeeze his hand.
Oh, wow.
But I faced my fears and I just carried on because, that was the business I was in. Now, of course, totally love travel. My husband and I have actually been to every state in the U.S., 10 countries so far, and we still have plenty of places to go. But I remember, of course, I couldn't travel as I was recovering. I was working from home and I wasn't traveling. But my first trip was to Colorado. And I remember being on the plane and going, okay, I'm going to do my meditation, my breathing, my mindfulness, just did what I did, and I was so calm. I had no sweaty palm, and I was able to keep that energy, because I love to talk about energy, keep that energy available for when I got off the plane and I head to the hotel to take care of what I was doing. I was much more available to them. So that was the first moment, like aha moment, like, hey, this really works. I'm going to keep going. And I did, and I still do it today. And then the first time I flew with my husband, he was like, what's happening? Like, he's like, who are you? And what did you do, Liz? Because I was a completely different person. He was like shocked. And it is amazing how much better you can feel by, just staying calm.
Well, and even with my, this nice Apple Watch that once a day it says it's time to breathe. And it just it guides you with pressure on your wrist to take a deep breath in and then take a deep breath out. And it really does, running around frantic as a planner. I mean, it could be quite helpful, and just take that time. If Absolutely. You don't have the time, just let this do it for you.
Yeah. I teach a corporate well-being course called Energize Your Remote Work Life. And it's all about, finding your energy and it's taking time to just remember to breathe, which it doesn't. But I talk about technology and I talk about the fact that, we have to take breaks from technology, but also that we can use technology to make us healthy. In your example, the Apple Watch, setting it up, because a lot of people have these things, but they don't set them up. And then they just snooze them away or whatever. So if you can use technology to your benefit and for your health, then you win and technology doesn't.
Well, and on that other note is that the stand-ups, and there is a way to get around it by just shaking your arm up and down. But I mean, once an hour, just get up and move for 1 minute, and it will tell you if you're doing like real movements. But even making your bed, I mean, I found that in the morning, I'm like, I put it on and I make my bed, and that is actually counts as that minute of movement. And so just that little bit does help. And I love making sure that I've reached my 12 hours a day so that I'm not sitting in this chair all the time.
Exactly. Yeah. And in the course that I teach, I talk about moving, and I talk about why, because when you move, your blood moves around and what moves around in your blood, oxygen and your nutrients and everything. And it keeps you more clear to make better decisions every day, whether it's for your personal life or for your business. So you're more productive, and you do get energized with every small movement. You do get re-energized.
I'm going to do this. One of the things that I do, let's see if I can do this, is Tai Chi. And I took a Tai Chi class in Greenville, and it's just this standing here and flipping, your arms and basically smacking your rear end. But, but I'll get up and do that for a minute, and it just it loosens up your hips because you've been sitting for so long. And then I also touch the ground with my fingers. But those little things, doing that for a minute is helpful besides just, getting the walk in as well. I
call them recovery breaks. That's what I call them.
Oh, I like that.
A little recovery break.
I do want to point out one other thing that she said here is that IAC, my good friend Mark Cooper, they have an copper skillet competition every single year around the world with all of their venues, and their chefs compete. And they are so good, like you said, at recognizing that culinary team who does make their properties just like blossom and have such good food at those events. So Mark Cooper, keep it up. And all of my IAC friends, you guys are great. So what are some things that a planner could do to incorporate this into their meeting? I mean, IMAX is really good they have a mindfulness room, at every one of their events. And so we can do that, but how can we do that? I mean, besides having somebody breathe, just before a course, any other suggestions that you have for us to incorporate this into our meetings?
Well, I mean, from a meeting planner perspective, I think from a meeting planner perspective, working with the people at the hotel or the venue, wherever you are, to definitely have those places of quiet where people can just take a break and just basically be instead of do, is really going to be, I think, appreciated by everyone, because you're just so overstimulated. I know many times that I've been in these meetings, you're just exhausted when you get back to your room. And you just want to, or if you're staying at the hotel, or you just need to step outside. Having an area that is designated for people to be able to go outside, perhaps smoke-free, because I know people go outside to smoke, but if you can have a smoke-free area outside where people can go, have maybe walking paths, like if there's a walking path in the area, and I don't mean like 20 minute or whatever, just like something where a person, because I know I've walked my share of parking lots around the buildings of where I've been. So just anything to remind the participants that it's okay, like even in the registration table, something that's focused on health. Having just a card that says, we care about you and your health, and we want you to take time to take care of yourself, a little self-care every day. Here's 3 ideas local to the,
I like that.
area, things like that, and if it's overnight, like people staying for multiple days, then definitely go even more with, here's the top, 10 health-oriented, activities that you can do. And a lot of them for free would be even more helpful.
Yeah. For those convention and visitors bureaus and DMOs, I think that's a great way to incorporate that into LA. I'm just going to use you, if LA's event app, so that she's got an app for the event and saying, you can download the app, and you're going to get a reminder a couple of times a day to say, go do this, or have a scavenger hunt using John Chen's ideas of, engaging events, virtual events, or other kinds of gaming. Go see Philadelphia and see, these are the spots around here that you can walk to in 5 minutes and come back to your next meeting. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. It's so re-energizing to get outside, see something new. I mean, anywhere that I've traveled and been with, of course, other people I've traveled with, everyone knows they need to bring their walking shoes with me around, because I definitely walk the talk. I do everything I tell people that I coach to do, I really do, from gratitude to walking to drinking water. As a matter of fact, I need to do that. Trying to get 7 hours of sleep, not easy, but, I try. Exercise, yoga, Tai Chi. By the way, I was at a meeting and they brought someone in to do Tai Chi with everyone. It was so neat. Like, just like the little moves of Tai Chi.
Right, exactly.
So that you can do it. So I think everyone really appreciates learning something new. And, even if it's just a couple of moves that you can keep doing. I took a Tai Chi class, and out of it, I have 3 moves that I keep doing, that I do, and break up, so. Yeah,
I need to find one here in New Bern. It did remind me of my cooking class, and I know I've said this in another episode, but LA, I'm going to come to that in a second, but I taught a kids cooking camp in Atlanta, and on Thursdays it was an Iron Chef competition. And so I had 12 kids every single season, and they were all getting frantic. They were like, oh my God, we got to do the chef thing. I'm like, okay, stop. And I actually even did it on Monday before we did it, but I made them stop at 12 o'clock and say, okay, everybody, we're going to take a deep breath in, and we're going to take a deep breath out. And I even had them bend over and release it. And when like on Tuesday or Wednesday, or even Thursday, when they were doing their Iron Chef, they're like, Tracy, we got to do our breathing. And so like, even these, 12-year-olds were saying, let's do this. So it is quite helpful. And I actually just started Weight Watchers, down 5.5 pounds. Woohoo!
Yeah,
but
great.
Weight Watchers is even, it's not just about your food. It's incorporating that sleep, watching your sleep, as well as your exercise. And I think it's really everybody's seeing the benefit of that. In LA, I want everybody to shout out what you've accomplished.
Yeah.
You get 365 days of 12,000 steps a day.
Nice.
That's awesome. Good girl. So consecutively, you walk 12,000 steps because 5 miles is 10,000. And so is that what, 6 miles a day that you're walking, purposely walking 6 miles a day? Or is that just in your normal walking as well? We can get into that later.
And she's been a WW for 7 years. Nice.
Yeah.
My mom's 90. She's she was a Weight Watchers lifer. So when I was cleaning out her house, I found like the super older Weight Watchers pamphlets and things. It was incredible. I don't even know I have no idea what year it is from. I can't remember. Like
you could send it to them.
1960 something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do health coaching with individuals, and I do the corporate well-being. I think Weight Watchers is one of the best programs because it teaches you just how to live and sustain in a sustainable way. So
right, yeah. Well, and that is a big challenge is figuring out how to eat in a sustainable way that lasts a long time, as well as getting your exercise into it in a sustainable way as well. Because, LA just commented most of it's purposeful steps, but it's also just regular movement. And that reminds me of, oh my gosh, he's going to kill me that I forgot his name. But years ago, probably 8-10 years ago, I was in the Philippines on an event, and oh my God, what is his name? Richard. It's like, Tracy, help me get my last 10,000 steps. And I'm like, okay, what are you talking about? And it was because he was purposely doing the 10,000 steps a day so that he knew he was moving and getting that movement in. And that really has just stayed in my mind for that long. So it's really, really good. And, we want to eat real food. We want to make sure that we're not eating as much processed food or that fast food stuff that we're doing that we know where it's coming from. And yeah.
I will say in my travels, the industry is trying, airports are trying to have better options. Probably will come as no surprise. I'm a vegetarian. Maybe you can call me a pescatarian. On occasion I have some fish. But that was about 7 years now. And it was a little bit hard when I started traveling, but it's gotten better where they are offering more real foods out there. But agree, whole food, plant-based is great. And even in the blue zones, that's one of the common denominators across the 5 areas are gardening and then harvesting and eating, the plant-based foods, and meats are special occasion items.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of how we can be more sustainable in offering our meeting menus as well. I had a great conversation on Tuesday with the Pittsburgh Convention Center about what their rooftop garden, and it's actually being redesigned right now, so being reconstructed. But what, the chef there with Levy Restaurants is, takes the tomatoes and she pickles them, or she does cucumbers and pickles them, and she uses them later on throughout the rest of the year when they don't have them. And so that's even just a rooftop at a convention center doing that. So I think it's just really, but utilizing real food. So I think it's just awesome that what we can do. And you're welcome, LA. Always you can join this conversation. I love it. And so, all right. So a couple of last minute tips, Liz, and then I'm going to ask you, or actually last minute tips. And I know you have 2 resources that you've used.
Yeah.
That have helped you. So what are those 2 resources?
Yeah. So for mindfulness, there's a book called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction Every Day. There it is. Let me see. There we go.
There you go.
And I basically read one little chapter, which is like 3 pages every morning. And it was, I think there were 43 or 44. So 44 days in a row. Super easy, really helps you to get started with mindfulness and meditation. And not even meditation, it's really just mindfulness. So I think that's a really good one for anyone that either hasn't done anything related to mindfulness and meditation or just wants some refresh. Really great ideas there. And then this is the positive journal.
Okay.
And it's 365 days of science-based information. It's by Nancy F. Clark. And she uses all different resources. Every day there's a page with just a small paragraph about how you can think differently to lead you down to feeling more positive about your life and other people's lives, because there's things that you do that help push the positivity out to other people. And I've only got a few more pages left, so I've almost done with 365 days of this.
That's awesome.
And it's just a really, and I've been following and focused on health and wellness, and you never stop learning. And it's always good to try something new, use your brain differently, think differently, and continue to be grateful for what you have. And then that gratitude leads to just feeling better. And again, just leads to better health, better digestion, better everything. Perfect every day? No. You're going to get upset. Things are going to happen. Things are going to happen in your life that you're going to have to deal with. But what happens when you take a little bit of time every day for some mindfulness, for some positivity, it does allow you to handle the challenges that come your way just a little bit better.
Very true. I mean, because you have to figure out how to do them. And it's like somebody asks you a question and you want to strike back, but being mindful and you can take that deep breath and say, okay, I'm listening to that. And then this is how I'm going to respond. It helps so much.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have a funny story. Like this was a bunch of years ago. I was in a 2-hour meeting. It was like really intense. And then someone, I was leading whatever corporate team thing I was doing, some project. And then someone came over to me to ask me another question. And I took like a deep breath. I was like, hold on a second. I took a deep breath. I relaxed. And then I turned back. I'm like, okay, what would you like to ask me? And they looked at me like I had like 10 heads. They're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just letting go of the stressful 2 hours I just had so I could focus on you and hear what you're saying, and be in the moment. And
right.
I just was laughing how he thought I was weird. And now, it's like way more normal to just.
Well, and I hopefully with that response, he appreciates that, because that is like, you said, I want to be focused on you and the conversation that I have with you. And that is so important. So.
Yeah. For all the meeting planners out there or people that actually have, the online meetings, I really like a mindful minute in the beginning of every meeting where you just have everybody just go, it's not meditation. It's just like, hey, everyone, okay, everyone's over. You go, all right, everyone, let's just take a deep breath in. Now, and you just do a couple of deep breaths and you're like, this is a mindful minute. Let go of everything that you've just been working on in the past. Let's be in the moment. We could be much more efficient that way. Everybody focus on what's going on right now so we can get to the answers and then move on to whatever. And you still have some time for some self-care. And
I think that's even important to do on virtual meetings.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean especially for virtual.
Exactly. So, okay. So one last question. What is your favorite food and beverage?
Well, so I always like to share that I am so blessed and grateful that my husband loves to cook. So I call him Chef Jeff, and on my website, you'll see several of his videos that he graciously made for me on just simple ways to make really good, a lot of them are vegetables, but really easy recipes. So anything he cooks, I love, but I lean in on Greek food, spinach, feta, anything that. I have an Italian Turkish background, so I think that's where it pulls me to Greek food. I am and I love mint, like dark chocolate covered mint. So I love, not candy, but I love dark chocolate, and anything dark chocolate, anything mint. As far as beverage, I am basically a water drinker. 99.9% of the time I drink water. If I treat myself, it's an Arnold Palmer, which is a lemonade iced tea. I'm a big golfer. As I mentioned, my husband and I have golfed in every state in 10 countries. So love that, and some ginger ale with lime. That's my fancy. So anyone sees me drinking something other than water, they're like, hey, what's going on? What are you celebrating? That's just the way, even though I grew up in food and beverage, I just wasn't into the alcohol part of it. And it just was, and I learned all about wine tasting and all that, even without tasting it, and help my clients, figure out which wine is best with what. But that's me. So definitely drink your water. It's very helpful for your whole body.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Liz, thank you so much for sharing your tips with us, and for all the planners listening who will gain from you. So LA, thank you for participating as well. And for everyone, thank you for tuning in to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. We're here live in Eating at a Meeting Facebook group and Thrive Meetings and Events Facebook page and YouTube every Wednesday. But you can also listen after the fact on all podcast platforms. Just look up Eating at a Meeting on the podcast platforms. We'll see you here next week. We're going to talk about Earth Day. I've got Chance Thompson, and we're going to talk about how to be sustainable in our events, especially around food and beverage, to celebrate Earth Day. So thanks. And until next time, stay safe and eat well.
Thank you, Tracy. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Liz. Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.